So that goes to the original question, doesn't it? What would make the best student? The reason we have 12-week, 24-week programs instead of 6-week. Why is it? It's all about what we can provide for a product.
Yeah.
The product being the best farriers we can produce.
You know, the very essence of the mental game is this. The only reason an event matters is because we make it matter.
Welcome to the Mullins Farrier Podcast.
My name is Todd Walker.
I'm Sarah Mary Brown.
My name's Hayden Price.
I am Megan Coyle.
Hi, I'm Connor Sloman.
My name's Ashley Sloman.
Hi, I'm Derek Popewad.
Daniel Jones.
My name is Ellie Mae Watford.
Jim Blurton. I'm from Welshpool in Wales.
I went to Mount Mowbray, the Army School. You know, it's this big forge with big oak block wooden floor, 7 fires, anvils and everything else. It's a fantastic facility. And I remember walking in there thinking, wow, this is where I want to be.
Most people that I know in this industry only want the best for the other people in the industry, which is a pretty cool thing.
This bonus episode is available in full to everyone, thanks to the support of Fletcher Forge and Tool. Our resident business guru on the podcast, Andrew DeVisser, has spoken a few times about the concept of how rasps are our biggest expense. As farriers, it's important that we understand the difference between consumables, like rasps, and fixed assets, like our trucks and our tools. There is one item we use, though, that has always confused me: our propane forge. I mean, they cost enough to be a fixed asset, but I would find myself constantly replacing mine because they basically ate themselves over an unreasonably short period of time. But as usual, Andrew resolved my confusion and created the FFT 100. This forge is made to be a family heirloom, built out of heavy-duty steel and designed to be easily relined as many times as you like. This is a forge you can definitely put in your fixed assets category. Find out more at FletcherForgeandTool.com or see one for yourself at Welshod or Professional Farrier Supply. Welcome, everyone. This episode is in honor of the 30th anniversary of one of my favorite places and some of my favorite people to visit, Heartland Horseshoeing School. I'm not being hyperbolic when I say that going to the blacksmithing course almost a decade ago and then returning like a bad smell so many times since changed my shoeing career and my life. Getting accredited with the AFA wasn't even on my radar, and I was many years into my career with a solid business. But I didn't know what I didn't know, and under the patient tutelage of the Gregorys, I started to be able to see the gaps in my knowledge and my skill set, and then work to improve them. They opened my eyes to a whole world of possibilities in this trade that I had no idea existed. And then the idea of resting on my laurels was to become a foreign concept that I will never be able to understand. This year marked 30 years since Heartland's inception, and while I was down visiting the Gregorys for the celebration and the contest, I asked if we could get Kelly, Chris, and Cody to all sit down and have a conversation about the school, from its humble beginnings to what it has become and where it is going. You'll hear Cody use the term the full Gregory. This refers to the tendency of the Gregorys to approach any goal head-on and fully in, never half-cocked. It's this relentless tenacity that allowed the Gregorys to take the little piece of repossessed land on the outskirts of Lamar, Missouri, and turn it into the special place it is today. You'll also hear Cody allude to Chris's stint as a tattoo artist. In true Gregory fashion, he took his interest in tattooing, enrolled in a course, and then invested in a full-fledged tattoo studio setup where many a Heartlander got their first ink. I personally bear the evidence of Chris's talented hand on my calf. He eventually moved on to other interests and challenges, but I guess he had started the endeavor with Kelly in mind. I'm not sure as a co-artist or as a canvas. I'll let you decide from the conversation. The Gregorys and Heartland have done so much for me. It is an honor to be able to help them share their story with you. I hope you enjoy the conversation as much as I did. So I hit record as Chris was revealing some personal story. So Kelly and I start teasing him about it. And that is where we begin.
No, you can use that for blackmail.
Yeah, right.
Pretend like it's not on and get some good information.
That's the best spying ever. I hand him a microphone and he just spills it all.
Well, you are talented. And you have that recorded.
Yeah. I'm going to keep that one, play it over and over again.
That'll be the new intro. Brian Mullins, you are talented.
Yeah. So we're sitting here. It is the 30th anniversary of Heartland Horseshoeing School. And I thought, since I could get all of you in a room together at one time, that we would have a discussion just about the school and how it got started, where it's going, and just, cover all the bases and just explain to the world what goes on here and give them an idea of the very cool place that I keep coming back to because of what it is.
Well, it started, so Kelly and I got together, and I was shoeing horses, and it became what I did for a living, and I married a woman that was willing to do with her husband what the husband's going to do. And I tell you what, if I can give anybody advice out there, marry well. Marry somebody who's going to pull the sled in the same direction you're going. So
I wonder what he wants.
Are you getting back into tattooing?
Was that frowned upon?
Oh, no, it wasn't no, but
Oh, wow. We're going to spill all the secrets right now.
well, so I thought that with the tattooing that Kelly would get involved, but she never did. So it's,
Oh, I didn't know it was a partner project.
well, I thought she would love tattoo. You met her,
Yeah.
right? Didn't you think she would like a tattoo?
Yeah. Yeah.
There you go. She didn't like it. Well, anyway, no, seriously, if you marry well, and the people that don't work with their spouse spend so much time, you got 24 hours in a day, you got to sleep 8 of it, you got to work 8 of it, and if you're working with someone else besides your spouse, then I feel you're losing a lot of time that could be very valuable. But anyway, we decided to start a horseshoeing school, and I started it for another person in 1992 in Colorado, but it was his school. And I was leaving before light in the morning, getting home after dark, and so I never got to see them. I never got to see the kids. I never got to see the house in the daylight. Making extremely good money for the early 90s, but not living a great life. So the world is so much more than the money you make, but is the life you get to live. And so we just took a couple weeks off, explored Missouri from in the southwest corner. We had lived in Kansas for college for 3 years and knew the area a little bit, but didn't want to pay Kansas taxes.
Oh, okay.
And so if you're going to start a business, if you can find a place that has a better or a more favorable tax code and more favorable to small business, then I suggest you go there. And so we found, and there were so many God things when you look back at it. There's so many things that had to happen. We had to happen to have found the right place. We had to have happened to walk into the right bank that was about to foreclose on this place just by accident. The banker told me we'd never survive. He told me Heartland would never have any students come here. We'd never be able to shoe horses in Barton County. But he could just repossess it from me in 3 years. And we had enough money down that he did it. So anyway, that's how we started. And that was April 15th of 1995 is when we legally started. We had students in the winter of 94 because we had to pay the bills, and there were some guys willing, and we charged them a little or nothing. And I taught them 3 guys, and we were just in a pickup truck shoeing horses, almost like they were 3 apprentices with a little bit of bookwork. But that was not the school yet, but those were the first students that worked here. And then April 95, we got approved by the state of Missouri, and we starved to death for the next 5 years. Why don't you guys jump in?
And I was even going to backtrack a little bit. What made you decide that I'm going to teach horseshoeing of all the things?
I loved horseshoeing.
That's a very delicate question.
Well, go ahead. What was the
Well, the answer is that you went to a 2-week horseshoeing school and felt like you didn't really learn much. And so he chased clinics all over the country, and it took him probably 5 years to get where our students are when they leave here in a year, in 24 weeks.
Right.
Because
no, they're further than I was.
yeah, but I don't know, after the 5 years, we went all over the entire United States hitting clinics, driving a truck that burned a quart of oil every 900 miles.
No, that was our good truck, babe. That was a 2000. That 87 Ford, it burned like 2 quarts every tank of gas.
Yeah. To blow black smoke, we went all the way to Virginia and coming home, and black smoke is blowing everywhere.
And came home in it to Colorado, and you were pregnant.
And then we blowed a motor.
Finally. We got to Colorado, And we get to the east edge of Denver and blew a motor. And we are, is it 10 miles to where we ended up?
Yeah.
10 miles to get to where the house we rented was. And so we borrowed my dad's truck, and it was snowing. Kelly's 7 or 8 months pregnant. She is driving my dad's truck, pulling our black truck, and I am sitting in it with a flashlight, holding it out the window with my hand absolutely freezing because there was no lights. So I want people to be able to see us and see her. So I keep having to switch hands and put it out the window with a flashlight.
When there were no cell phones back then, really. We didn't
Never
have
mind.
a cell phones back then.
Yeah.
So it wasn't any like we were talking. He's crying back there. It was so cold. Screaming.
It was brutal.
Trials and tribulations. Cody, what are your first memories of being at the school?
Oh man, we lived there, right? So life. It was quite the life to grow up in. Dad's talking about those 5 years of starving to death. Well, we did it with them. So they would be shooing out to midnight or 1 in the morning, and we were there with them. We were asleep on hay bales or stacked up like cordwood in the back seat of the truck.
Yeah.
They would straighten nails, and they would clean shoes, and they would.
And they would nail nails into the dirt.
Yeah, I would take a box of nails and just drive them into the dirt.
They were busy. They stayed safe that way.
Nails was a little cheaper then, wasn't it?
It was a lot cheaper. It still wasn't cheap, but I loved you.
You didn't have the Terrafor going on then?
And I wanted to develop your hammer swing, and look what that did.
Yeah. It
That
paid
was
off.
pretty cheap teaching.
Right.
But yeah, you were just there, right? You were, from the time you were young, you were in a situation where,
Well, we convinced them that chips and mayonnaise sandwiches was a delicacy. Because
Yeah,
that's at one point,
we were
that's
so
all
broke.
we could afford.
So at the Horseshoeing School, that's a 2,000 square foot house.
Yeah, probably somewhere. Yeah.
And I remember living in the living room that winter with blankets hanging up because that's where the fireplace was.
Oh, right.
And
Yeah, all of us lived in there.
yeah.
Yep. So the kids never had a babysitter, which meant that if they couldn't go, we didn't go. But it also meant that they were exposed, like Cody's and Jackson's kids are getting exposed now. And so they were around 150 people all weekend, and there was never a kid problem.
No.
And it's because those kids have been in that situation. And there also wasn't a kid that was just stuck in a corner with an iPad glued to his head. If you're raising kids, if you make time for your kids when they're kids, they'll make time for you when they're adults. And man, I think that's a critical message.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's enviable to see how much your children, like I see Cody's children now, growing up in the school, learning life, learning a lot of lessons on their own, like figuring stuff out, but they are entertained all day.
And they have to be, because
Yeah.
we're working, and that's part of the life that they're living. You holler at the 6-year-old to go get the skid steer, and she can go get the skid steer.
Yep. And I should note that I did see her when she was 5, drive it, pick up a skid load of coke and deliver it into the school. And then I saw you do the same thing the next day. She didn't hit anything, and you hit 2 things in the forge.
For the record, he was looking at Cody.
Never claimed to be a good driver.
Oh, no.
I don't know why everyone goes spectacles, testicle, wallet, and watch every time they get in the van.
I've heard it's an eye contact.
Yeah, I don't know. People, it's a thing of the past. People don't want to make eye contact with you while you're driving.
While you're driving. They're too busy staring at the road for you.
If someone's got to look.
Now, growing up in it, at what point did you decide, hey, this is what I want to do?
So you just did, right? So I don't know. How old was I whenever every dollar you made, I made with you?
So when Cody was 4, he trimmed his first horse. And because we have a school, and because we have a school the way we have a school where we do so many horses, we go to a farm, and if the owner had either a really gentle old horse or a pony, then I'd say, all right, son, that's your horse. And Cody might work on it for 3 or 4 hours. Now, there's not a lot of 4 and 5-year-olds that can stay entertained with one horse for that long,
Right.
or a lot of horses that'll take it for that long, but there was enough. And we were getting $8 for trims and $18 for shoes. And then whatever horses Cody trimmed, we'd put $8 in the bank for him, which was a lot of money to us. $8 was not, and then to get away from that woman over there.
My children are the only place I want to spend money.
So Cody had probably $120 saved up by the end of that first summer like that. And then he just kept advancing. And he was getting the benefit of foot that he could work on for all day. He was getting the benefit of good education. He was getting the benefit of reward, because he was getting some monetary reward as well as some praise. And it was definitely his identity. Then, as we advanced a little bit, he shod his first horse by himself when he was 8. And by then he was making probably a few $100s a year from the school. But he was jump welding without flux and all this other stuff. So you can imagine that you're a 22-year-old student and you see this little 9-year-old tottering around jump welding without flux. And so that obviously put Cody in a different situation.
Yeah, it definitely put me in a different situation. But also, I grew up with the idea that if someone was going out working, you just went and worked. And so if mom and dad were out shoeing, I was out shoeing with them.
Mm-hmm.
And so whenever I was full on shoeing for a while, I was wrenching and clenching with their personal clients, and you're out with the school. And then as you get better, you get to do more. But they took care of us, right? We hit 65 rodeos a year. The amount of expense mom and dad spent on us was because what we did as a family, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, and I wouldn't even like to put the numbers to. I don't want to put the numbers to what we spent on rodeoing, right?
Well, rodeoing was Heartland Horseshoeing School's advertising budget.
Right.
And so we could legally justify it because we had it painted all over the trailer and they wore Heartland shirts. And I don't know how many students we got out of rodeo, but the experiences.
Yeah.
Good for you.
What rodeo taught was like when you do multiple events, your calf rope, team rope, ride bulls, steer wrestle, you go out, throw it in the dirt, throw a warning shot at your calf rope and calf. You got to get your mind right because you got to go rope a steer, right? And so if you don't get your emotions under control, you ruin the whole day and you wasted the whole weekend, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so that and the competitive spirit and being able to go into a high stress situation and come out of it with success was really important for all the things that
led to a 15-year-old journeyman, and it led to FWCF with honors because those situations. And if you don't create that sort of stuff in your child, then your child doesn't know how to problem solve. Your child doesn't know how to not quit.
Mm-hmm.
You know, letting your child quit. If your child signs up for basketball, then by golly, they better play basketball till the season's over.
Right.
Maybe next year they don't have to. That's a different story. But letting your child quit, please. If you're a parent and you got a young kid and they want to quit, I don't care what it is. They want to quit piano lessons. If they signed up for a certain thing, make them see it through. Otherwise, you're going to have a child that won't quit staying at your house whenever he's 30.
Mm-hmm.
That's how I could have done it.
Oh, yeah.
I guess another thing I wanted to discuss with all of you here was the dynamic of having all three of you teach, because you all teach in different ways. So the kind of running joke is that you have certain students that will gravitate to certain work bands, right? So how does that work?
You want to throw this one up, Mom?
No.
So when we go to the field, if you start with a student that day, you try to stay with them so that there's no confusion. Because let's say that I start working with a student and I say, that's good. And I'm thinking that's good enough. And it's going to be okay for this student. I don't want to ruin them right now. They need a little bit of confidence booster, even though it's not perfect.
Mm-hmm.
And then Kelly comes along, picks up and says, oh my gosh, you did that to the frog? And I'm like, hun, it's okay. But she saw that, and that was something that probably needed fixed, but it's not detrimental, and I could have fixed it whenever I was looking at their hot fit or something. Or vice versa. I'll go over there, and if I pick up one of the feet that she's been working on and say, oh, hey, you need to take a little bit off that heel, then she goes, no, I wanted that heel there. So nobody's going to see all the feet the same way.
Right.
And so that caused a little bit of confusion for students and irritation among staff. So we try not to cross over as much as possible. I think that's probably the answer to that question.
Yeah, it works a lot better when we do that.
And it's better for the students. And then we're always with different students. So occasionally I'll look at a group and I'll say, I haven't worked with that student for 3 weeks. And that student's been avoiding me. It does happen.
Yeah.
Yeah, because even I've found in the courses that I've come to, now, unfortunately, I haven't been under your tutelage, Kelly. You're not usually at the courses that I'm at.
No, I don't do the advanced stuff.
But even between you two gentlemen, you will get different people and help them with different aspects of it. Like you, Chris, you tend to break things down into like really minute details. And I don't know how to explain it. Maybe you can explain it better. I think I heard you say once in the military, they break complicated things down into very small tasks, and then it's repetition of that task.
Yeah, so you can take any project, and if you just say building a front shoe, you can say that's a toe bend, that's a heel, it's a branch, it's nail holes. It's the heel, it's a branch, it's nail holes. And then you could go on and say it's a shape and it's a clip. And you can say each one of those is a task, and if you practice that task, and so you become a master at toe bends, and a master at heels and a master at branch and a master at nails, if you mastered all those tasks, even if you haven't built an entire shoe yet, you will have the skills to build a better shoe than the person that just tries to rush through all the shoe building without building the skill. That's my deal. But Cody's eye, so here's another thing, is that Cody was able to develop his eye as a 4 or 5-year-old kid. So he sees things on feet that I just have to accept that he says they're there because, my eye is just not, and it never will be, and it never could be, because I wasn't looking at feet when I was 4 years old.
Mm-hmm.
And the same thing with his hammer swing, because he was able to develop a hammer swing. I can hit hard or I can hit accurately, but I can't hit that hard or that accurately that many times in a row.
Yeah.
Right? And
Right.
very few people can.
Yeah.
But because he's developed not only the skill to do it from a neural pathway perspective, he's developed the musculature and the bone and the joint and all of that put together to allow him to hit like that.
Yeah.
And then you put him on a sledgehammer, my goodness, your anvil grunts every time he swings.
I heard somebody explain that when Cody struck for him, he didn't even have to practice for the competition. He said, I would just hold the piece of steel and it would turn into a shoe.
Yeah, I miss those days.
But with Cody, what I learned in working with you is that exactly like your father said, you see these minute details and then you work it into a concept that you explain to students, but not all of the students are ready to hear the answers that you're willing to give. So I found that there are certain students that they gravitate towards you and other students that gravitate towards Chris based on what their learning style is or where they are in their skill building. Have you found that yourself, or is
Absolutely. It's any personalities, they either get along or they don't, right?
Mhm.
So some people don't quite understand what I'm saying, and that does happen. And for me, though, I do go ahead and try to take it to that point because I believe it takes a certain number of times to hear things.
Yeah.
And if you don't start the process as soon as you can, then they may never hear it, right? So the way that I do toe bends, I start it that way because as soon as you move to drawing 381, as soon as you start building roadsters, that's something that you need to know. And I try to push the things that are important as soon as I can.
And it's always blown my mind how you can tell me the same thing year after year. And I might not get it the first 20 times, but you don't lose your patience. You just repeat that lesson the next time.
Well, that's our job,
Yeah.
right? You don't lose your patience if a horse keeps having to have a little adjustment. The next time the rider says, I need this. And so you don't lose your patience with that because that's your job.
Right.
And so our job is to help as many horses by helping their farriers as we can. And sometimes that requires showing and saying and doing over and over.
Right.
Now, it's a dumb question, there are dumb questions. They say there's no dumb question. Well, that's a dumb thing to say. But if it's just a dumb question or somebody just talking to talk, then we'll try to focus them. But our goal is to help somebody become a shoer or a better shoer.
Right. Well, and the evidence of that, it was pretty cool to see this weekend when you had all of those people, most of them Heartland graduates, all together for a competition, all working at a fairly high level. Even your current students, were not some of them in the intermediate?
Yeah, we had 3 in the intermediate.
Yeah.
Yeah, they did awesome. Yeah,
Yeah.
for them.
Who was in the intermediate?
Casey, Curly, and Tucker.
So they're 7 weeks into school, and the intermediate class was, the one today was 11 inches as a 3/8x1 drawn out to a 3/4 forward in 45 minutes.
Right.
And they got done.
And they got done, and not just got done, they did it with style. Like the shoes were nailable. They, obviously a little refinement would be nice, but I was really proud of all 3 of them.
So the thing that I always said, one of my favorite things to tell people when they ask about the school is I have made a career of setting unrealistic expectations and then fully expecting people to achieve them.
Yep.
And if you require more of a person than they think they can give, and the match play is a great example. You start a person out of match play at a 9-minute shoe and they barely get done. By the time they're done, they're doing a 5-minute shoe better than their 9-minute shoe.
Yeah.
I think Brian Mullins was an example of
Might
that
have
in the first 2
experienced
rounds.
that. Yeah, just a little bit.
The first round, I was like, what?
Yeah, so
And
was
the,
I.
The second round was like 10 weeks of training better.
Yeah, I had to reevaluate things there. Yeah, just a little bit. So what are attributes that you look for in students or that you think students should have if they're considering coming to Heartland?
I think that for me, it's important to know that this is a career you need to have a passion and love for. If you're looking for a 9 to 5, horseshoeing's not your job, but the Heartland is definitely not the place for you.
That's true.
I personally am striving not to just make farriers. I'm striving for them to go out, feed their families, do great for horses, and love their career. But if you're not pushing, if you're not trying to get better, if you don't have that passion that says every day, I'm never going to do good enough. I can always learn more. I can do better for the horse. My skill set, I can learn more. If you can have that passion that you will always have a mountain to climb in front of you, horseshoeing is amazing.
Mm-hmm. What do you look for in a student, Mom? Incoming student.
Work ethic, hustle. Not just work ethic, hustle.
Yeah, so work ethic, problem solving, and
Critical thinking skills.
a willingness to not quit. Those are pretty important things.
Yeah.
And you don't even really have to be necessarily talented. You don't have to be experienced. People will call me and say, boy, I'd really like to come to horseshoeing school, but I don't know anything about it. That's fine. That's why you go to school. And so you don't have to have any of that. If you're willing to do what you're told, you're willing to work hard, we know how to turn you into a great horseshoer, but you got to be able to meet us halfway, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I find the lack of critical thinking skills to, if something's not working, to try something different. And you just keep chewing the same thing over and over again and never changing is a big deal.
And it's a bigger deal than it was 30 years ago.
Seems to be.
Yeah. Now, you get some students who are coming, aren't some of them here 17 or 18 years
lot.
old?
We have 4 that are 17? 3.
Yeah, we had 3 that were 17 this year.
So it's their first experience away from home. It's almost like a complete life experience for them because everything is new. And
I don't think it matters how old you are. It's an entire life experience.
yeah, you're right. Yeah.
If you talk to someone like Mark Hickox, you talk to so many people, it is a life-altering place.
Yep.
In so many more ways than learning to shoe horses.
Yep.
It's a Gregory vortex, right? Once you enter the Gregory vortex,
Yeah.
it's
You're there.
And you either really love it or you hate it.
Yeah,
This
that's
is
right.
I don't try to talk people into coming to school here because if it's not the right place for them, they shouldn't come. But if it is the right place and you end up at another school, you're going to be completely dissatisfied,
Yeah.
I think.
Yep. Now, you had said there was a period of time where you realized that going online and doing your now infamous YouTube channel was the route you were going to have to take, or with Facebook. What was that?
I bragged to everybody for so long. I thought the internet was going to go away and I wasn't going to have email and I wouldn't have to have, I have the job that's internet proof. And then in 2009, and everybody was struggling in 2009. There was a crisis, but we were just even. We weren't turning away 50 students. And then in 2010, we're 70,000 behind in revenue. And so the YouTube channel is born. And you look at have you looked at a 2010 video in a while?
I haven't, no.
Oh my gosh, you were a young person.
Still had hair?
I don't know. You were wearing a cowboy hat and you weighed about 120 pounds. Yeah.
Soaking wet.
Yeah.
I've had wedding cake since then.
You have had wedding cake. So 2010, I started playing the game. And my textbook, I was writing my textbook at that time as well. So I started writing my textbook in 2009. And it took about 16 months. And so right toward the end of that is when I started doing the YouTube stuff, trying to generate business, right? And the majority of our students before that were just simply word of mouth. But now we had to use the internet to help our word of mouth. And that's kind of what we're doing now.
Right. Yeah.
And then I met this guy named Brian Mullins, and he said, oh, hey, you got to see what podcasting's like. You did pretty good on that. And so now I've spent a lot of time doing that.
Yeah. So I was going to talk about the other things that you guys are doing besides the school, like Cody with your tool business, and then the clinics that you give. You came up to Ontario a couple of years ago and gave a dissection clinic, which they're becoming quite famous. I hear about them everywhere I go, and I'd love to see one. And then Chris with yours. Those things, are they just natural offshoots of the school? What drew you to doing the clinics? What drew you to podcasting?
Without the team we have, none of it would be possible, right? So because we're a family business, because we have the support from our wives and what we have, it makes it so someone could be gone for a weekend. It allows us to have things. Work ethic is also a thing that was driven to us. If you guys have ever worked with my mother, I dare you to outwork her.
He's not lying.
So
Yeah, I remember her catching Chris having a nap one time. That was...
Oh,
The
yeah, right.
massage. I was catching him on the massage.
You know that story?
No.
I was doing a clinic in the Northeast. Now, riding on a plane, it's tough
hard
work.
on you.
Yeah. And I was there a day early with a friend of ours named Jeff. And I couldn't turn my head. And he said, boy, you look like you're hurting. I said, yeah, I got this thing in my back. And he said, well, my neighbor, she's a masseuse, and I go to her all the time, and maybe she can get you in. Well, it was June or July. It was 20 students and 30 horses deep and crazy busy out here. And in my ignorance, I handed Jeff my phone, and I didn't give him any real instructions. And I went in and got my massage. And Kelly, I don't know, what were you dealing with?
I was dealing with something and I needed to talk to you right now, and I couldn't find you because you were getting a massage.
So she called and Jeff said, we can't talk right now. He's getting a massage.
Good thing he was in the East Coast.
She was grumpy. But the clinics were such an important thing for so long to keep students here. Because you'd do a clinic, you'd meet 50 horseshoers, and then somebody would say, where should you go to school? And that guy would say, hey, we just saw the Gregory's. You should look at Heartland. So that was absolutely a necessity at that time. The book and the articles were also very important. And I'm an early riser, and you're not sweating while you're typing. You're not sweating while you're producing. You're not sweating while you're editing. But it is a lot of work. Yeah. And so in order to produce that stuff, somebody's got to produce it. And so that's largely been my role.
Gotcha. Yeah, and a lot of things have changed at the school over the years. I got to see the complete changeover of the bunkhouse, the beautiful spot that it is now. Not that it wasn't beautiful before.
It had its own beauty.
Yeah, it was charming.
Being built in 1870 is charming.
Oh, I look back and wonder how some of these parents dropped their kids off to live in that. But on one hand, it was very uncomfortable in the bunkhouse. And so people stayed in the forge a lot longer. It wasn't comfortable for them to go in there. It was only used to shower, eat, and go to bed. There was no relaxing, and it was not nice enough to relax in there, and there wasn't no porch. And now we find that the porch might have been the worst thing we ever did because they go out there and sit and relax a lot more than they would have.
Are they pretty easy on porch equipment?
No.
Porch equipment.
Patio furniture.
Oh.
Yeah, students.
They break metal chairs.
Really?
Yeah, they are pretty hard on...
If you're coming to school, Mom will hold you underwater if you break her metal chairs.
So practice your breathing skills.
Not till you quit kicking, but until you gurgle a little bit.
Brian did a cold plunge yesterday.
Oh, good for him.
So I did mine, and then Cal did his, and I keep the water at 37 degrees, and that was too cold for Uncle Cal. He was out for 2 minutes. And then Brian got in for a full 3 minutes. And Cal and I held him, but that helped.
Best way to keep him from drowning is take your foot off his head, huh?
Peer pressure is one thing, direct pressure is another.
Yeah.
Highly recommended for anybody.
You guys really are missing out on seeing Brian's faces. Talking about the match play, he was the same color as his cord.
Yeah.
And the vein on his head was quite big. Oh, there it is. There's that vein.
That's it. Yep. The tell. That's why I don't play poker. So where do you see the school going in the future? Is there...
That's
anything?
a question for Cody.
Okay.
I don't know. Is it a question for me?
So we always have these discussions. At some point, Kelly and I are going to have to back off. But I guess we haven't finalized when that is. And so we talk about it all the time. I try to get out of his way as much as I can. And I know he tries to get out of mine. But we're at a point now where we really got to figure that out, I think.
I don't know that we'll ever truly want to retire, but we probably want to do less, let him have more, and have us do less.
You can always sit back and plan and idealize what you would do, right? So whether or not how that all comes to fruition, best laid plan of mice and men, right?
Right. Yeah.
But yeah, there's definitely opportunities and things that would either change from necessity or from sitting back and plotting. But yeah.
Well, and the thing is, the school's 6 months by design, because we couldn't do this year round. It wouldn't be good for us. It wouldn't be good for the students.
Mm-hmm.
So all of us have other things that we do for the other 6 months. Kelly and I have other customers. I do a lot of writing and the podcasting and stuff. She has grandbabies she loves. We both like to ride our horses. So we have other stuff that we do for the other time. Cody has about 20 other things that he does, right? And most of them are money makers. So he can go just make knives and tools and hammers and stuff. Or he could just go and shoe horses. Or he couldn't just go and do clinics. And so there's a lot of options luckily for all of us.
One of the problems is that our lives are designed around us all together working. And so this would be too much for Cody alone.
One person, yeah.
One person. Even with Kirsty helping, it's still too much. So he'll have to hire help. Or we can just be the hired help. He can take over everything, and we'll just go to work. Because we like what we do. I mean, I really do enjoy teaching most days. And I don't know.
But there's also the book side of it. So
Yeah.
There's dealing with immigration. There's dealing with the coordinating board for higher education. There's dealing with taxes. There's dealing with payroll. So there's roles that Kelly and I do that we filled for 30 years.
Right. Yeah.
That would have to be delegated as well. So I don't know, Brian.
I think when
That
we
is a
start to
tough
lose
question.
it mentally, then we'll probably have to, or physically, we can't do it no more.
They make joint replacements.
Then it will be Cody's decision whether or not he hires us or he fires us.
With contemplation, all the things they've talked about have solutions, don't they? So you can solve a lot of things with a little contemplation.
Yeah. Right.
It would be very hard for me to retire and know that they're working that hard
See,
while
that's
I'm
one of the
sitting
big
around.
problems. Let's say we say, okay, at this year we're quitting, and then we know Cody's got 30 head, and the girls have a rodeo, so Kirsty can't make it, and it's just him with 30 head and 20 students, and
Right.
so we're gonna sit here.
No,
That's
that's a problem. Yeah, we're not about to let him work his tail off while we're sitting on our bums.
Especially if we're drawing a check.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know how we're gonna solve this. What do you think we should do, looking from the outside in?
That's a good question that I'm not sure I've contemplated enough to give you an answer right now.
I'll expect a full report by next week.
If somebody has a good suggestion,
And you brought up the 6-month thing, and by design, there are a lot of schools that chose the money-making route of just doing 6-week courses and just churning through students. And I think you guys should discuss why you made the decision to go to the longer form.
Have you ever heard of the Gregory doing anything less than the full Gregory?
Well, that's true.
So the question you're asking is what creates the highest quality student?
Mm-hmm.
And we built it around that.
Yes, because if it was just about money, it would be a whole different deal, right?
Yeah.
And we wouldn't have had this 30-year celebration the way we did. I don't know what we spent on it. We really don't.
please
wanna know.
don't use no numbers today.
Yeah,
Her eye's already twitching. Just think
yeah.
about
So this, if it was just about the money, things would be a lot different around here. If it was just about the money, we wouldn't be burning coke and letting students have the access to the forge room 24/7.
Right. Yeah.
And the bar stock rack doesn't have a lock on it,
Yeah.
and so it's
The
maybe it
deal is
should.
that you cannot teach somebody something and do it 12 months out of the year and give everything to them. You will burn out. We are so excited when classes start, but by the end, we are starting to, if you give it everything you got, you're getting burnt out.
Mm-hmm.
If you give them what you need to give them, you just have to give them a lot less if you were doing it for 12 months because you wouldn't be able to do it.
You'd
Yep.
become a normal school teacher, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You'd
Right.
just be putting your time in.
Yeah.
So that goes
Yeah.
to the original question, doesn't it? What would make the best student? The
Mhm.
reason we have 12-week, 24-week programs instead of 6-week. Why is it? It's all about what we can provide for a product.
Yeah.
The product being the best farriers we can produce.
And the secret to having a great school is to attract great people.
Yeah.
And if you look at what we got this year, you
Mm.
look around and you say, that person, if they would have gone to diesel mechanic school, would be great. And that person, if they'd have gone to nursing school, would be great. And so we're attracting this really high quality, hard charging, motivated person. And that really helps us have a great school.
Yeah. Yeah.
If you have an idiot and you teach them how to shoe horses, when you're done, they're still an idiot. They just know how to shoe horses. So there's that.
Yeah. So you're being selective in a way. Just
No,
by
we're not being selective.
by reputation.
Right. We've set up a school that attracts a certain type of individual.
Yeah.
And that type of individual is one that's more likely to be successful.
Mm-hmm.
We've had good shoers that you had thought they were going to send their kid here, but their kid decided that because we don't let them drink, that they went someplace else
Yeah.
because they want to party.
I had a very, very good friend, and his son went to another school, and I think probably because he knew his son couldn't handle this, which, smart move.
Yeah, I guess in the end. Well, is there anything else you guys would like to talk about before we
A lot of good questions.
close this up? Yeah.
Seems like you've ticked all the boxes.
Okay.
Snap time.
We are really happy that you've become a part of the Heartland.
Oh, well, it's a pleasure being here, as always.
Yeah, well, we've enjoyed our association immensely, and you've been extremely good for the Heartland. We appreciate you a lot.
It's been reciprocal. It's vice versa. So thank you very much. Thanks,
right.
guys. Thanks for
Well,
taking
thanks.
the time.
Thank you, Brian. Good job with all you've done.
Yeah, we really appreciate you.
Before I let you go, you heard Chris refer to Cody's tool business, Cody Gregory, LLC. As with all things Cody pursues, he put an incredible amount of thought and ingenuity into his tool designs, and he's continuously creating more. One of my favorites is Cody's 8-inch brass pocket ruler. I use this tool on every horse I fit up with shoes, because it saves me multiple trips to the anvil. It fits easily into my knife pocket, and with its 2 sides, I can mark length, width, and heel width with a Sharpie for both feet and refer to them as I'm shaping the shoes at the anvil. When I'm done with that pair of shoes, I spray the ruler with brake cleaner or aerosol antiperspirant, wipe off the marker, and start anew. You can find the ruler and the rest of Cody's incredible line of tools at codygregoryllc.com or ask for them at your local farrier supply. Well, that concludes this special episode. Thank you very much for listening. If you'd like to hear more full-length episodes like this one, please subscribe at mullinsfarrier.supercast.com. Well, until next time, take care of yourselves and each other out there. We'll talk soon. And as I sign off, I'll leave you with this.
Brian Mullins, you are talented.